Hello, everybody, and welcome to Across the Desk. My name is Elizabeth Plouffe, and I am the host of Across the Desk. And today we're continuing on with our partnership with the MentorAbility program. And I have two great guests that are with me here today, another success story for the MentorAbility program. And I'd like to welcome Doug Wallbank.
Hello.
Hello. And Amanda Craig.
Hi, Elizabeth.
How are you doing?
Super.
Super. We've just had a great conversation. So we're trying to, we always have this great conversation beforehand. Doug just shared an amazing thing. And I was like, no, we have to stop because otherwise we're going to miss the meaty bits. So now we're going to move into the meaty bits. So this amazing success story is brought to you from an organization called OpenText, which is a Canadian success story, which is fantastic. It began in 1991 as a University of Waterloo project. So go post-secondary. And has continued to grow. And Amanda, you mentioned it's 16,000 employees strong.
16,000 globally.
Globally.
Headquartered in Waterloo.
That's just crazy. Like that's just down. I'm in Burlington, so that's just down the road from me. And so can you tell me a little bit about OpenText before we launch into the conversation around the MentorAbility relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. So OpenText is it's a technology company located here in Waterloo with many technology companies, but we have been around for just over 30 years. 16,000 people, employees. Our footprint is global. We are located in more than 50 countries, and our company is focused on enabling organizations to gain insights through market-leading information management solutions. And those are focused in enterprise content management, the business network, so EDI type.
So for those that don't do the acronyms, what is EDI?
Oh, don't make me explain it. Come on, it's electronic data interchange, and we also do security and protection, which is one of our newer lines of focus. And of course, security is big, especially with all of the wonderful things that are happening in the internet these days.
Well, so we'll timestamp, which we do on, I host other podcasts, but we'll timestamp and say we are now in year 652 of the pandemic. And this just keeps going and going, this thing. So we're about 18 months in. And so the services that you're mentioning have been crucially important as we've had this, working from home situation and the amount of reliance on the cloud and what have you. And that comes with, of course, a reliance on a lot of different skill sets. And Doug, when we were talking before, you mentioned that you have your applied economics degree from Wilfrid Laurier, which I mentioned is way over my pay grade. So congrats on that, because it's not my. And so through that, you were obviously looking to pursue a career to use applied economics. And what kind of careers were you considering?
When I graduated, I reached out to the career consultant and I said, I have no clue.
What do I do with this now?
Absolutely no clue. Yeah. In fact, I reached out to one of my professors and was like, well, I was strong in microeconomics. What kind of jobs are available that, I would be able to use some of those skills.
Right.
So I got an idea of some jobs that might exist, but they weren't like specific job titles or any really actionable information.
And that can be really overwhelming, especially when you're fresh out of university, trying to make, use of the degree you've just spent 4 years slogging away for. So you made a really smart choice, though, because a lot of people have a hard time asking for help. So you went to the right place, asked for some help. And you mentioned that you were able to chat with a career consultant. And it's the Co-op Careers at Laurier?
Yeah, Co-op Career Center.
And so what ended up happening through that relationship when you were chatting away with them?
Well, we essentially established, I took a bunch of workshops that kind of prepared me for the job search process, but really I asked for, what kind of resources are available to me as a job seeker, but also as an individual with a disability.
And what did they end up recommending for you then?
One of the programs that they recommended was MentorAbility.
Mhm.
And I guess they had noticed that I had previously done a mentorship program before, but MentorAbility was a new program that was available all year round as opposed to one day. We
Right.
definitely discussed its benefits, and I was like, sounds like
Sounds like a good
something I'd like
fit.
to move. Yeah, great fit.
And so when we had the little discussion beforehand, Amanda, so the mentorability program is a fantastic opportunity for people just like Doug who are either transitioning careers, just got out of school. I mean, I know when I went to college, I've been to college 3 times. You think I would pick something, but not so much. I didn't know what to pick because you come out of high school and you're like, well, I don't know what I want to do.
Mhm.
You come out of university, same thing, especially with a degree like applied economics. Where could that take you? And that's where Mentorability offers some opportunities to connect you with a wide variety, which leads into the great thing that OpenText did. So OpenText has a relationship with Mentorability. And do you know when that began, Amanda?
I'm not sure. I know that I got brought into the process in about January of 2021. So our
Mhm.
human resources department reached out to myself and I think about 10 other people in finance to set up the session with Doug, or the sessions with Doug. And I remember I was very, very excited for the opportunity. And at that time, I didn't even know how great Doug was going to be.
Thank
So it's
you,
a nice
Amanda.
surprise. But that's also the great thing about what OpenText did. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning that this is an extremely large organization offering a lot of services and programs. And to take the time to be strategic about who for Doug should have a conversation with, that came out really awkward. But you know what I meant. Um, and for 10 different people to be willing to give their time, right? Again, we're back to asking for help. There's always going to be somebody there to lend a hand. And you mentioned that you have an equity, diversity, and inclusion team within OpenText. And it was one of those team members in the talent acquisition. And I think, Doug, you mentioned her name was Deb.
Yes.
And so she was sort of the linchpin of all of this and getting it moving, which was
Yes,
great.
she was the coordinator who kind of reached out to us, got our buy-in, and then as we got closer to the sessions with Doug, she shared some questions that he had prepared ahead of time, and I remember going through the questions, and some of them, I mean, having been working for a couple of years, looking back, it kind of caused me to stop and reflect and look at some of the questions were, how did you get where you are, and what do you want to do next? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do
I
next.
just got here. What do you want from me? Yeah.
But yeah, it really showed the type of person that we were going to be talking about, and just the level of effort he put into to those questions and level of organization. And so just at every step got more and more excited. And then when we finally had the session with Doug, I know I might be skipping ahead, Elizabeth, but I remember having the conversation, and we spoke for about an hour, and it was just one of those really energizing conversations where you felt like, wow, that was such a great talk. And right near the end, after going through all of our questions, I said, Doug, my team's hiring. Would you maybe be interested? And he was like, absolutely. And this was around March of 2021.
Yep.
And as you said earlier, we're I want to say at the tail end of the pandemic, but
We're not.
who knows when this is going to end. But at that time, we were seeing a really high volume of applications of people that had been negatively impacted by the pandemic, who were applying for jobs, who had lots of experience, and similar experience to what we were looking for. So I had said to Doug, I said, apply. And then I don't know if it was a day later, and I sent a follow-up email. I said, you need to apply soon, because we have a ton of people that are applying, and then of course he did the interview, and definitely on his own merits was successful, and we ended up hiring him, and he's just beyond the 3-month mark now, right, Doug?
Yeah, just beyond 3 months, everything seems up and up.
Success across the board. But
Yeah.
that's, you make a really, inadvertently make a really valid point, Amanda, in that advocates within an organization are what makes all the difference to the success of a program like this, because recognizing that a disability is not the entire person, it's something that has to be addressed, that every organization should be open to. And Doug made a really valid reference before we began that, yes, there's been a couple of things that have had to be addressed as far as successfully managing your disability and how it impacts you more importantly than the organization. And OpenText has made that really clear, that they're more concerned about how it manages so that you can function at your best versus what impact it could have on OpenText. But because they already have an employee health focused culture, that makes it just that much easier. And you mentioned, Doug, that it's been kind of an experiment to see what works for you and what works for the organization, and trying out those different things. And that's been successful.
Yeah, it's definitely an ongoing conversation. And I guess, the openness about it is helping both sides, as you just mentioned, where, I'm able to get my needs met at the same time as, well, they meet my needs, and then I'm able to perform at my best and in turn support the company.
Right. And that's
So,
the value that everybody misses, I think. They hear disability and they make assumptions about what that might entail. And it's never as complicated as it's you make it up in your head. I think it's lack of
no, and as long
understanding.
as you're practicing your coping strategies and you're managing your disability, in my situation, I present as if I don't have a disability, and that's kind of the healthy state that I want to be in every
Oh,
day.
I love that. See, you come out with these gems. I'm glad we were recording this one because that was awesome. And so one of the things that OpenText has on their website is their accessibility plan. And I was so impressed when I read this, because a lot of organizations are just coming on board now with what that has to look like. It's become the thing to do. And OpenText was ahead of the trend and created a multi-year accessibility plan, which they began in 2016. And not only have they completed a fair amount, I believe there are 13 different points that they have included in this plan. Not only have they already completed the majority of them, I'm so impressed that they've gone back and revisited some of them and updated them, or there are a couple that are still in progress, which is great, which means that the organization has not only recognized value from hiring from the disability talent pool, but that they need to continue improving and adapting so that they are more accessible and a better place to work. That, I think, that ends up making it better for everybody. Would you say, Amanda? With, 16,000 employees, that's a lot to that's a lot of cookies to hand out to say good for you. But having that policy in place, would you say that's made an impact? You can speak to your department or.
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, we go through the normal training every year related to accessibility, and there's, like we had mentioned earlier, we have a department that is focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And there's more and more training that's being added to management to make sure that everyone is very educated on making sure that everyone is set up for success. Because just because you have a disability or you have certain accommodations that need to be made does not mean that you're going to be negatively impacted from a work perspective. And what we have found, especially since hiring Doug, is he came in and I think there was a question at the beginning of, Doug, you might need an extra bit of help or extra time with learning, but you didn't. Doug hit the ground running, and he immediately started looking at processes and saying, I think we could do this better. I think I can automate this. And he has just been an incredible superstar and an asset to the team. And you can see just from speaking to him, the energy that he brings, it lifts people up, right? It gets people excited. So I can remember on one of the meetings that I had with the team shortly after Doug joined, and I asked Doug, like, how are you doing, and how's the team been welcoming, and his level of enthusiasm, he's just like, I'm great, I'm super happy to be here, everybody's great. I'm like, this is fantastic, I feel good.
Well, and it does, right? I mean, so your position when Doug came on board was the director of America's Billing.
That's
and
right.
and that's a huge department. And Doug is now on board as a billing coordinator for professional services in that US department. And so, Doug, you had mentioned a little bit about invoicing. But in addition to that, which I love, because I'm one of those people that takes on extra projects when I probably shouldn't, you have moved into these projects for improving processes for information and automation. So sharing between departments and what have you. And you were about to explain more, please.
Yeah. Essentially, I guess this is the micro story. In my third week on the job, I was shown, I was introduced to a process that was happening within my department.
Mhm.
And essentially, we were doing about an hour's worth of manual Excel work. So working with an Excel spreadsheet, bringing in data, formatting the data, and then I've got a little bit of a coding background or a programming background, and I realized right away that I can get that done in one click.
Airtable.
So Amanda, you shouldn't hear this, but I spent a good weekend producing this macro to be able to do this one process in a click, which was obviously self-interest, like absolutely love those
Nothing
kind of
wrong with
projects.
that at all.
And then I showed up on Monday and I was like, watch this, click, done.
I think Doug, at one of our first meetings after you had come on board, you had said that your goal was to automate yourself out of a job.
Yes.
That's not a selling feature, my friend.
It's not, but like there will be new challenges to take on once I,
That is
100%.
That is valid. And so what was your experience like, Doug, as a protege? So you were coming into this and you had your interviews. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yes.
When I was connected with the talent acquisition advisor, Deb, she was like, we need to have a conversation. We got on the phone together and she was like, what are you interested in? What do you like? So we had a great conversation talking about, my general area of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of passed some ideas by me of, who she could connect me with. And then she took it from there and prepared a 3-day mentorship program.
Wow.
Or it was 2 or 3 days, but I ended up having 1 1-hour session and 4 45-minute sessions with up, between 2 and 3 individuals at a time. And everyone that I met from OpenText was like super knowledgeable. They were extremely engaged in the conversation. And with each informational interview, I was like changing my questions based on the input I was getting from my interviewees.
Mm-hmm.
And it blew my mind because I would ask a question, and in the traditional mentorships, you're speaking with one individual, so they interpret the question and they give you an answer. But by interviewing multiple individuals, they were feeding off of each other, and the way I described it is they were providing exhaustive answers to my questions.
You were probably stimulating them with your questions, so it just became this whole mind, what do you call it, like a brain meld, if you want to do Spock or whatever. But That's an incredible process. Like, and I think that's a really inspiring thing to share, because I wonder if organizations and individuals get trapped in the traditional way of doing things. And the process that you've outlined not only offers an opportunity for you to gain insight into the organization and those roles, but also offers an opportunity for a conversation that probably wouldn't normally be had between those team members. So I think that's a very much a win-win. Like I'm so excited to hear that you had a great experience and so much
Well,
time that was invested by the company.
That's why my mind was blown, because I had gone from doing regular mentorships, with one person, one company, one job, to this huge array of people. Like, and I guess like the conversation was not only career and job related, but we were busting myths of like the job search experience.
Yeah.
I remember what Amanda told me, and she's like, a career path is not linear. And I'm sitting there going like,
oh, truth. If I were to show you mine, it would look like a game of snakes and ladders. Like
mind blown,
Yeah.
I was like, because I was in the thick of it. I was, applying to jobs left, right, and center, getting nowhere fast with these online
traditional
inboxes.
job,
And MentorAbility was an opportunity for me to start networking.
Very cool. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why we're busting your chops about your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible thing that you've been given. But it sounds from what Amanda has shared that OpenText benefited just as greatly from not only the opportunity to meet you, which was very successful, but to go through this mentorship process. And was there a process then after that, Amanda, where the team members were able to give any feedback on the process? We didn't cover that before, but it just came.
Yeah, I know that there was a survey that got sent out to all of the participants, and I know that I myself had responded to the survey to provide that back to our human resources, and I would assume back to the MentorAbility coordinators as well. But yeah,
Extremely valuable.
And again, I thought it was just a fantastic experience. And I think that going into these things, I mean, we're talking about the amount of time that OpenText invested into this program, but it was time well spent, because
That's the case to make, right?
Yeah, it was one of those, it was going through interviews, especially online, Zoom, Microsoft Teams interviews, is exhausting.
No.
But to go through the process and, to have had someone already speak to Doug and say, this is a great recent graduate with, the capacity to learn and with a fantastic attitude, and he wants to be here.
Yeah.
Like he wants to work at OpenText. And we had a conversation, and he knew what he was getting into, and he's still happy to be here, right, Doug?
Oh, absolutely.
No pressure. So I forgot to ask that, because we're in the middle of this pandemic, and March 2021, we were still under quite restrictive lockdowns and what have you. So this all happened online?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Would have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, folks. If you're listening and you're an employer and you're wondering how to get engaged with this, please don't think for a moment that the MentorAbility program has to happen face-to-face. As we roll out into the different phases of, relaxing restrictions, absolutely, that's something that can be addressed. But there's such a level of comfort and familiarity now with the variety of online platforms, be it Zoom or Teams or Google Meet or what have you, that it can be an equally effective measure to at least begin that conversation and explore, as restrictions and safety, is taken into an account. Maybe your second meeting is a face-to-face. Maybe as it gets safe to do that, and everybody's, managing their risk strategy and what have you. But there are ways around it now. There's no need to wait. You don't have to wait until the restrictions are done. It can happen successfully now. And OpenText and Doug are a great example of how not only is it a win for Doug, because everybody, looking to get a job, everybody's been where you were, Doug, where you're trying to navigate, you're trying to network, you're trying to apply, you're trying to sell yourself in some capacity or another. It's so frustrating. And to be able to access a program like MentorAbility to help pave that a little bit. I mean, you have to be a superstar. MentorAbility doesn't do it for you.
No, absolutely not.
You have to have the skill set. You have to do the preparation, which, by the way, kudos on that. People undervalue prep.
Mm-hmm.
They undervalue the questions that they create. They undervalue being adaptive, because for you to then change your questions as you went from meeting to meeting is a really smart strategy, because it increases your learning and it shows that you're paying attention and you value the time that the organization is giving you. But it also keeps the organization on their toes, right? Because if they talk and they say, oh, he's going to ask this, this, and this, and then Doug, the superstar, comes out and says, no, 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 I already got that answer. We're going to go on to something else. I think that's great. Well done.
And I really liked the aspect that, because OpenText was part of the MentorAbility program, it was an immediate green flag for me. I'm like, these guys, because they're part of this program, it guarantees that they're accepting of people, open-minded, and accepting of people with disabilities, and they're willing to put in the effort on their end, because obviously it's also on me, on my end. But
you made a really valid point earlier, though, about disclosing. That's a really hard thing for people to navigate. And you mentioned that disclosure process was a team effort. And what did that look like? So did that increase your comfort as far as sharing?
Well, so I disclosed the change. They already knew that I had a disability going in, because I had mentioned that I was part of this program. But I guess I disclosed a change in my experience of my disability.
Right.
And it was really it was an amazing conversation, because my boss was like, awesome, because I started the conversation by saying, I'm noticing some symptoms, and I want to reach out to you now before it does impact my job in the team. And she's like, awesome. What can I do to help? And I said, well, I'm doing some experiments on my end to deal with my symptoms and manage them while I'm at home. But I would like to start the conversation for when we do enter the workspace again. What's available.
What that looks like.
Yeah. And we really hashed out a very strong strategy, that allows me to take what I'm doing at home and apply it to the workplace. And at the end of the day, in my situation, it's all about the flexibility, being able to manage the symptoms, and then get back to my work.
Get back to what you enjoy, which is an incredible thing. And that was one of the last questions was, future plans for OpenText to be involved in the MentorAbility relationship. And from all sounds of it, it was it's been a successful experiment so far. And so OpenText is going to continue with the.
So I did reach out.
She says with a question mark.
So I did reach out to our equity, diversity, and inclusion team, just to make sure that I wasn't speaking out of turn when I said that it was something that OpenText would be interested in continuing to be involved in the future. And I mean, based on this great success, definitely something that we would be open to. I don't know if future proteges are going to be able to live up to.
I was going to say, you set the bar pretty high, Doug. So, but as we mentioned before, by your willingness to share your experience, as I mentioned, as the mom of somebody with a disability, you not only provide an opportunity for folks who have a disability and are navigating the job world to go, okay, I have options now.
Mm-hmm.
I have places I can go to for help, and Doug had success. Perhaps I can too. And again, I will attribute a lot of your success to the fact that you took it seriously and you prepared and you were professional and got in there and applied yourself to that. That's a key point of any relationship being successful. But you also, by being willing to share your story, give hope to parents who are new to the disability space with their child, whatever that diagnosis is. And OpenText, Amanda, your willingness to come on tells employers, okay, this is a thing. This is a good thing. There's this incredible talent pool of people with disabilities that I need to learn about and need to get involved in, because I could get a dog.
Yes.
And who doesn't want a dog?
Absolutely.
Everybody needs a dog.
Yes.
Well, I lucked out and got an OpenText, so
That
works
is
both
true.
ways.
Not to put OpenText down,
Well, I mean, I have to say, when you go into an interview, you ask a lot of questions about the employer because you want to make sure they're exactly who you want to be with. And I have to say that, as I learn more and more about the company and see what goes on, they definitely, talk the talk and they walk the walk.
Agreed.
So green flags all around.
And that's, well, I did find the 2020 corporate citizen report for OpenText, and the amount of projects that they're involved with as far as supporting the culture within the organization, supporting community projects that employees are involved in, supporting charitable works, supporting the environment. I mean, I hear you, Doug. That's ticks my moral boxes as well. So congrats, OpenText, on that. That is amazing. So we're going to wrap up, and I'm just wondering, is there a lesson that each of you would like to share as far as your experience with the process?
I would say I'll go first. So my experience with MentorAbility, I would say it was such a great opportunity to open us up to some talent that probably would have slipped between the cracks of new university graduate who maybe didn't necessarily have the experience but had the capacity to learn. It was also a great opportunity to demonstrate community leadership and have conversation about disability and to be able to better understand how to support people with disabilities. But as Doug has mentioned, I mean, the level of accommodation that we've had to make has been very minimal. That said, we're open to it, right? And we're open to the conversation of you tell us what you need.
And we'll figure it out. We'll do some experiments.
Yes, and it's worth it.
Oh, I like to see. So Doug, if there were one lesson that you could offer out of the MentorAbility process, what would you suggest?
Well, aside from all the skills that you develop participating in the program and everything that the program brings, I would just say that MentorAbility is a necessary tool for anyone with a disability who is in a job seeking or career research development phase to move forward. Like you're gonna send out your resumes. You're gonna try to do some informational interviews through your own personal channels, but then reach out to MentorAbility and really take advantage of it.
Make it work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did information when I graduated in 2012. I was a 40-something graduate, and I did informational interviews. I organized them myself through my network and through school and what have you. But there is massive value to both sides for informational interviews because it takes the pressure off the employer and provides opportunity for the individual. So the mentors and proteges within the MentorAbility program experience something they probably haven't done before because it is a relatively underutilized tool in the job search, but extremely valuable. So if you're looking to get in touch and learn more about the MentorAbility program, and I forgot to pull it up, so I apologize, but you can go to Oden, ODEN, and look up the MentorAbility program there. We're also working with the March of Dimes. Lisa Livingston and Amy Widows are the two coordinators that I've been working with who offer the MentorAbility program through March of Dimes and through Oden. You can find out more about the program. We're going to have some links in the discussion, and we're going to be linking to the accessibility plan that OpenText has. If you've got questions, please put them in the comment section and we'll make sure they get to the right people. But thank you very much, Doug and Amanda, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This was your first podcast you shared.
Yes, and thanks for
Yes.
having us. This was
Yeah.
very, very exciting.
Woo! I think that makes my day. So thank you for joining us. You guys are going to hang on for a second, but we're going to say goodbye to everybody else. So thank you for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate it. Again, we're on today with the MentorAbility podcast, and we've been focusing on OpenText, which is located in Waterloo, Kitchener, Waterloo, not far from where I'm at, which is fantastic. And the success story between OpenText and Doug Wallbank, and now his new job as a billing coordinator for OpenText, and telling people, hey, I'm gonna automate myself out of a job because I'm so smart. And then move on to the next project.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.